Welcome back to Unsportsmanlike Conduct. You're joining us for our second hour, the 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. block. If you were listening the first hour, we were talking about Michigan State, Michigan, the Lions game being edged out by the Eagles. We talked in short detail about Ichiro Suzuki and what his hitting accomplishments mean to Major League Baseball. We talked a little bit about the Tigers. We can get back to them a little bit in this hour if you'd like. I'm so past the baseball season. It's hockey season this time of year. We'll get to all that in just a minute. First, Mike, I want to let you talk to the viewers, the listeners, tell them how they can get in on this conversation because we'd love to hear from the people.
Oh, you can call us live at 810-208-1854. You can go to the Facebook page on Sportsmanlike Conduct with Paul Gerke and Mike McManaman. Like the page, send it to friends and family. We post things during the week that you can comment on. We'll read some of the comments during the show, or you can leave comments if you want. Or you can go to flinttalkradio.com and chat live with us now. There's 5 viewers currently. Nobody's chatting with us, but we would like some chatter. So if you're just watching, start chatting.
Feel free to berate us. I mean, we love it when you talk trash in the chat.
Yeah, a lot of people say bad things.
It encourages us to make less mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, so I was at Firkin and Fox last night. Half off Thursdays.
Watch what you say.
What?
Don't reveal too much. Okay, go ahead.
A mistake to be at Firkin and Fox last night?
No, you know what I'm
I don't know what
talking
you're
about.
alluding to.
I know.
Anyway, our friend Dave was up there.
Money Dave, we call him.
Money Dave, a fellow coworker of ours.
Yeah. Fan
Dave,
of the show.
Dave brings home a lady last night.
Yeah.
Mad love to Money Dave for bringing home a lady from the bar last night.
Nice job, Dave.
That is something I have only done once in my life. And you've never done it, have you? We talked about this last night.
Nope.
That is that's an accomplishment for as awkward as we are with women. Congratulations, Money Dave, on your successes last night. That's one for mankind. Mad love. What are you so nervous and jerky about?
Oh, because Dave's not going to be. We don't
Listening? Dave, what?
That's true.
Dave told me last night. I said, Dave, I gotta leave. Good luck. May the force be with you. All that. I got a radio show to do in the morning. I can't stay out and get hammered, right? He goes, I would watch, but that's my sleeping time. Until 1 o'clock, I mean, Dave's out. He's not seeing this.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's tuning in right now.
He was gone this morning when we left.
Wow.
I don't know where he went with this mysterious
Don't forget
vixen.
Don't forget this is a podcast.
Right. Yeah, but he's not going to check it. You don't know Dave. Dave doesn't care about us or our accomplishments for the radio show. Dave's hoping for our failure probably, but we're saying congratulations. Anyway, I'm sure the people on YouTube are going to love that.
Yeah.
The yak. I don't care who Dave is. I don't care if Dave's getting laid, blah, 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 blah. That's almost as disappointing as talking about the Tigers. I thought you were going to get into that. I thought you were going to be like, yeah.
The Tigers?
No. It's bringing ladies home from the bar conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, Red Wings started their preseason this past week.
Mm-hmm.
This is a topic I've been waiting to talk about for forever because, I'm a hockey fan. The Wings get smoked in Pittsburgh 5-1. Granted, it's the preseason. Granted, a loss really doesn't mean anything here. Granted, the Wings didn't play Datsuk or Zetterberg, but it's still a loss. You still got beat by Pittsburgh, a team that, you obviously hate to lose to. Chris Osgood allows 5 goals in the first 2 periods. He gets the start over Jimmy Howard. Jimmy didn't play. Jimmy. Osgood doesn't play, or Osgood plays the first 2 periods. Thomas McCollum, their third stringer, gets the third period. He doesn't allow a goal in 10 shots. The real story in this one is the Brooks Orpik-Todd Bertuzzi incident. Now, I still haven't seen it. This game wasn't televised, but from what I've heard and what I've read, Brooks Orpik had a bit of a knee-on-knee collision with Johan Franzen, who's had knee problems. Franzen went down hurt. They're saying it's a Charlie horse. They're saying it's not a serious injury. That remains to be seen. I guess it incited a bit of a brawl. Todd Bertuzzi went ape shit, went after Orpik. I guess he got him pretty good from what I understand. Both of them were given fighting penalties, 10-minute misconducts. Bertuzzi got a 2-minute instigator. He's probably going to be looking at discipline from the league. But then again, Orpik might be 2 for the knee. That is the drama that I'd love to see in the preseason. That's what makes me wish these things would have been televised, What does that do for the Red Wings-Penguins rivalry?
I don't think it does much. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Penguins had all their starters playing, or a lot of their.
Well, not all of them, yeah,
Well,
but Crosby
lot-
was there. Malkin played like 22 minutes.
I heard a lot more than the reports are that the Penguins played a lot more starters.
Jonathan
than
Ericsson
the-
got like 25 minutes of ice time the other night.
Yeah. So I don't think it does much, but maybe with the fighting and stuff like that. I think
That's
it
what I'm saying, the
it
knee
amps it up.
incident.
Yeah, I mean that gives them something too. It's preseason though.
I mean, these are two teams that played in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2 consecutive years.
Well, they hate each other. I mean, I don't think this is going to add that much to it because they already hate each other. They already don't like each other. Everybody around here hates the Penguins. I don't know anybody. You know, there's some Colorado Avalanche fans that we know and stuff like that, but I can't think of a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
What do you think in terms of the scope of rivalry in sports? Like right now, this is like the hot rivalry. I mean, when I was growing up, it was the Wings and the Avalanche.
Yeah.
What do you compare it to in another sport, in college football or pro football or basketball? Like, what is the Wings Penguins rivalry compared to? Like,
Well, it's only been going on a few years, so you can't compare it to something like Michigan, Ohio State.
right? Oh, I'm talking just more like era rivalries. Like, look at Ewing and Reggie Miller and the Knicks and Pacers back then. Is that comparable? I mean, they played in the same conference though, so I guess they played each other a lot more than the Wings and Pens do.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue because they don't play each other that much. So how big of a rivalry?
Well, the NHL's done a damn good job since the 2008 Stanley Cup Finals of making sure that by happenstance they're playing like twice a year, which is something you don't see very often from Eastern and Western Conference opponents. I believe they play twice again this year.
Well, I guess it would be like the Lakers Cavaliers rivalry. I mean, like it'd be something like that because they don't play each other very much. But whenever they do play, they hate each other. So.
I guess I just don't see the bad blood. But anyway, the Red Wings, their only goal was scored by free agent acquisition Ruslan Saleh. If you would have told me, hey, Paul, go ahead and lay a bet as to who scores the Wings' first goal of the preseason, that would have been near the bottom of my list. But Lidstrom and Rafalski had limited ice time. They're being split up this season. What do you think about that move by Mike Babcock?
I guess you're trying to add so both lines are more solid. I don't think it's a bad move.
You're splitting up your best two defensemen, essentially. Yeah. You're putting one with Cronwall, one with Brad Stewart, and then Soleil's probably going to...
He's trying to strengthen two lines. You're separating... I mean, you just don't want one super strong line and then one line that's not as, intimidating. So I guess maybe you're trying to improve that other player that's, with that player. Maybe you're trying to bring them up a little bit. I guess it just remains... Because there's only been one preseason, so you really can't tell how that would work out, and it would depend on the chemistry of the two defensemen, how they get along, how they work together. I think it could be a great move.
It appears that Lidstrom's going to play with Cronwall. I wish that they'd put Lidstrom with Eriksson and break up that third pairing, because that third pairing is going to be ass awful. Yeah. It really is. I mean, you're going to look at Ruslan Saleh, whose best years are behind him, babysitting either Jonathan Eriksson or Jakob Kindl, who has to play this season, or the Wings are going to have to put him through waivers, and they're going to lose a decent young defenseman. So it's going to be rough on that third pairing. I mean, I don't know if you dress 7 defensemen or what, but I don't think Lidstrom, Cronwall, Rafalski, Stewart is really the combination to go because you're still leaving that third defensive pairing as an absolute liability.
Yeah.
And Derek Meach is in that mix too. I hope he doesn't make the team. Not any accosting or not any offense meant towards Derek Meach. I don't think
What if he's watching? He's going to be offended.
I don't think he's better than the 7 other defensemen on the team.
Yeah.
So based on what you've heard so far, because I know we haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
What do you want to see out of the Red Wings this preseason? Just to stay healthy?
I think in the preseason, just stay healthy. Probably not get as many fights or as many situations where you're going to get hurt. But I guess that's all you can hope for in the preseason because they're not playing like a lot of their starters very
well. Aaron Downey is on the Red Wings preseason roster as he is every year, and he's going to get involved in some fights. He got involved in another altercation in that game against Pittsburgh the other night.
I mean, if you're a bum, you can get as many fights as you want, but I don't want any like legitimate players.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just some bum and you want to do
things to look for this season for the Detroit Red Wings, do you think Jimmy Howard has even close to the success that he had last season?
No, probably not.
Not 30-some wins. That's scary. I thought you were going to take the other side of that coin.
I don't know.
You just think he's a flash in the pan, young goaltender sort of thing?
He's not even young. He's like...
Well, he's only got 1 year in the league, I guess, so he's in his mid to late 20s. We'll move on.
He is that old, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he was stuck in the AHL for 4 years, 5 years.
But that always makes you wonder, like, is he just going to go back to what kept him in? I guess he's got something to prove when you're that old and you're a rookie. I think you always have
He
something
should
to
have won the
prove.
Calder last year. I'm just sort of disappointed about that. Anyway, kind of some sad news to pass along. This week, Kenny McKinley of the Denver Broncos committed suicide. It's the third Bronco player to die in the last 3 years. They lost Darren Williams a couple of years ago in a shooting incident. They lost another young running back last year. Is there, I guess it's tough to ask a question about this, but what does that tragedy mean to a franchise? I mean, what does that do to you in the locker room?
Well, they've had 3 players die in the last 4 years, so I guess they're accustomed to tragedy. I guess what you would do in that situation is try to play for him and his family and just hope for the best and just pray for his family.
This was a guy, if I'm not mistaken, who led, is it South Carolina that he went to
Yes.
school? He led South Carolina all time in receiving yards. He was on the injured reserve list this season with another knee injury. I guess it's the second straight season that he'd missed as a result of an injury. This is a guy that's making, how much money is it? Something like almost $400,000, $385,000 to not play football, basically. It's a guy who's got a young son. He's got a college education. Seems like just a normal, successful dude. He's got a bright future ahead of him. If not in the NFL, you got your degree. Why does a guy like that kill himself?
Well, there was speculation whether it was like playing time or he had some financial issues. Just some people have different temperaments and they can't handle stress the same way other people can. And maybe he was one of those guys. The reports are, and this is usually the case when somebody's suicidal, that he was really happy the weeks leading up to him, and he seemed jovial. And he didn't seem like somebody that would want to, when you think somebody that wants to commit suicide, you think they're going to be like really depressed all the time and act like, but usually that's not the case. When you hear a lot of these cases, everybody goes like, I would have never expected him to, kill himself because he was always happy. He's been really happy lately, and that's usually that's usually what happens. Just mental illness, it can happen in any walk. Just because you're an athlete and you have a lot of money doesn't mean that you don't have, bad thoughts. And just looking at it, you think sometimes like, what if I had all kinds of money and was successful? Like if you were in the NFL, I imagine you'd think like, I don't have anything to worry about. I'm making almost $400,000. I'm successful. I'm in the NFL. Like, well, anything that anybody says or any stress I would just be able to think about all those successes I had. But it's a different kind of stress. It's not like the stress that we have where we don't know, where the money's coming from it's a different kind of stress. There's a lot of pressure on you. So he probably didn't feel like, he was one of the greatest wide receivers in South Carolina history. And when he got to the NFL, he probably didn't play very much.
Well, the injury problems were really what sidelined him. The police said that they discovered Kenny had been depressed because of a second straight season-ending knee injury.
Yeah.
He said after his surgery, Kenny joked to the doctors that he should just kill himself. Well, apparently he wasn't joking. The reason I brought this up, besides the fact that it sort of adds another perspective to the world of sports, is that Woody Page, a well-known columnist for the Denver Post, he appears on a variety of ESPN shows, including Around the Horn. Woody Page posted an article yesterday about Kenny McKinley's suicide, in which he speaks about his own experiences with wanting to take his own life. Now, this is a renowned columnist, known as sort of a funny guy, a guy who takes kind of a screwball perspective on sports. And here he is writing about the death of a player in terms of his own experiences with suicide. I'll quote a couple things. He says, 8 years ago this month, I knew a man that was committed to committing suicide, me. He said he planned out the last desperate, despondent, despicable act. The Broncos were playing on Sunday, September 15th, 2002, against the 49ers. I would fly to San Francisco the day before, drive up to Napa Valley, enjoy a bottle of expensive red wine, and check into a nice inn. The next morning, I would head over to the coast and swim out into the Pacific Ocean far enough that I could not make it back to shore. My death would be termed an accidental drowning, and my family and few friends would be horrified, but spared the humiliation. He says he figured out the details while laying on the sofa, staring at the ceiling for hours, as he did daily, swallowing the pills a prominent Denver psychiatrist had prescribed over a period of months: Prozac, Ritalin, Xanax, Valium, Ambien, and Zoloft, and swilling Jack Daniels. He says, I had everything to live for, but wanted nothing more than to die. That's kind of a scary thing to read in the Denver Post. I mean, you talk about a guy who, like I said, is known for kind of a screwball take on sports, funny guy. You know, he's got a whole bunch of things going for him. He's on ESPN, for Christ's sakes. And he's talking about how he wants to kill himself and how he can relate to these players. You know, the sort of stresses of being in the spotlight. Mm-hmm. I guess it's tough for somebody like us to come to terms with what it must mean to have the money, to have the success, to have the fame, and still not be happy with yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is for anybody. I can kind of understand it. Somebody like Chris Farley, for example, he seemed like he was a funny guy. Everybody liked him. But he effectively killed himself. He did all kinds of drugs. He took a speedball, which is, you know, one of the most dangerous drug combinations that you can take, and he ended up dying. So, you know, a part of it with these, when you reach a certain point, you have all these thrills. You have all these positive emotions. Like Chris Farley, like you're on TV, you're in the movies, you know, you have all this fame, but then you become numb. You know, what can you do next to make you feel that way again? You know, a lot of these football players, you know, when he couldn't play in the NFL, you know, he identified himself, and his whole life and his whole meaning of life was probably, I'm a football player. I'm supposed to be, you know, I was one of the best in college. I'm nothing now. I can't feel, you know, everything was probably tied to how well he did on the field. His happiness probably came from playing on the field on Sundays or Saturdays in college. So when you lose something like that, it's really, really hard. And it's hard for us to imagine because I guess we have so many things that we take solace in and that we can do. But with these type of characters and with some people, when you put yourself as like, I'm a football player, and then that's all taken away from you, it's hard to deal with.
It's one of those things you'd imagine that players struggle with in retirement too. I mean, this is something that they've been working towards since they were teenagers. And, you know, and then you're 32 years old and your knees go out and they say you can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Brett Favre, for example, he would probably be really depressed if he had to not do his...
I hate to make jokes, but he's still got Wrangler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another, I guess, side of this whole concept is you look at suicide rates among the elderly. They're obviously a lot higher than I mean, I guess middle-aged people don't kill themselves very often. It's usually, you know, young men and then older people. I guess it sort of relates to the same concept. Like you've led your entire life doing something, whether it be a job, whether it be a passion that you've sort of had, and you get to a certain point where you can't do that thing anymore.
Well, Bob Marley, for example, I like to think of this. He had an infection on his toe. It seemed like a small thing. And the reason he died was because he didn't get it treated. Part of it was because of religion, but part of it was because he did not want to stop dancing. That's who he was. He was a performer. And he felt like if he got that done, if he got it removed, he wouldn't be able to do the same things. And that's how he viewed himself as a musician. You know, if you're a concert pianist and somebody cut off your hands or something like that, and that's all you knew, that would rock your world, and you would have thoughts like that.
I'd like to move on to something a little less depressing. But if you'd like to get in on the conversation about Kenny McKinley's suicide or any of the topics we've touched so far, the number's 208-1854. We'd love to hear your opinions.
We just had somebody leave the chat. They probably
God,
really
I thought this was
now.
a happy-go-lucky sports talk show, and now it's all, yeah, grim and death talk. Let's talk about somebody who hasn't been depressing lately. That's Ndamukong Suh. We touched on it briefly in the first half of the show. You and I made prognostications a few weeks ago when we started the show about what Ndamukong Suh would bring to the Detroit defensive line. We both said that a year with 5 sacks and 30 tackles is probably what you're going to expect out of this guy. And you should be happy with that because he's an interior lineman. He's drawing double teams. He's a guy that's not going to get to the quarterback very often, and he's not going to make that many big plays. But what he is going to do is put his big frame in the middle of the field and clog things up for opposing offenses. Ndamukong Suh in his first couple games has got something like 10 tackles now and 2 sacks, a sack in each of his first 2 games. He has been, for all intents and purposes, pretty damn dominant against opposing offensive lines.
And he's being double-teamed a lot of the time.
Facing the double team.
Yeah.
And he's opening up holes for guys like Kyle Van Den Bosch, guys like Turk McBride, who's having a great year, guys for like, what's the other end, Jackson?
Yeah, Jackson.
Yeah, I mean,
Lawrence
are you willing?
Jackson.
Are you willing to revise your preseason predictions now for Ndamukong Suh? What has he shown you in these first 2 weeks?
He's lived up to the hype, I guess. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of hype about him. He's in commercials. He's in that one Dick's Sporting Good commercial where he tackles that. But he's lived up to the hype, and he's played pretty amazing. I would never expected this well already in first. I mean, you expect growing pains,
Right.
especially if you're playing for the Lions. You wouldn't expect that. Whenever there's hope for the Lions, whenever there's a player that you're like, wow, he's going to be really good, he was drafted high, you don't ever expect them to live up to it right away. I think maybe a few years down the road he could live up to that potential on another team, but he's playing well right now, and it's pretty amazing.
The Detroit Lions defense has really been, I guess, the surprise so far this season. They've struggled, I guess, defending against the pass, but that front four was everything we expected them to be. I mean, already this season they have 9 sacks. Okay, I believe, and this might be slightly inaccurate, but I read this stat yesterday where they had something like 23 all of last season.
Yeah.
That was ranked like 30th in the NFL. They're 13th in the NFL, tied for 13th with 9 sacks right now. I think that number is only going to keep getting bigger as Ndamukong Suh adjusts to the speed of the NFL game. When guys like Turk McBride and Lawrence Jackson suddenly, understand the opportunities that they're being given, I guess sort of getting around just one player when Ndamukong Suh is picking up 2 defensive or offensive linemen in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I really think the sky's the limit for this guy now. If he has anything less than like 8 sacks, I'm going to be disappointed. I guess maybe call me a bandwagon fan, but I was, I guess, cautiously optimistic, whichever way you want to spin it, about his performance this season, and yet he's sort of gone above and beyond already, and it's exciting. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he's in the minority of Lions players and decides to not end up on the IR this season.
Yeah.
That brings up the NFL power rankings. Just looking at a couple things, the Detroit Lions, like I said, the sacks this season have been one of the places that they've improved. We talked a little bit earlier in the first hour of the show about the Cowboys and the Vikings being 0-2. NFL power rankings, Mike, who do you say is number 1 right now from what you've seen?
The Saints.
Yeah, well, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. They're 2-0. They are number 1 in the power rankings. Number 2 is going to surprise you. The Pittsburgh Steelers are number 2 in the NFL power rankings.
Huh. That is very odd.
That seems unreasonable.
What's his face? Just got injured.
Dennis Dixon.
Yeah.
So Ben Roethlisberger is still suspended for raping. Not too much raping. Oh, Borat was on the other night on TBS. I was telling you about that. If you haven't seen Borat,
Brother Bilo.
Brother Bilo, very nice. Yeah, Borat was on TBS the other night, and they don't censor very much of it. They really don't. Like, it's still pretty graphic, even on TBS.
Well, that movie's got one of your favorite scenes of all time with the naked guys wrestling.
Oh God. The first time I saw that, I saw it in theaters, and
and then the last time you watched Borat, you made me leave the room.
And I closed the door. Yeah,
it was weird.
We don't need to talk about that on the radio. No, but the first time I saw it was in theaters, and I mean, imagine, the enormous theater screen in front of you and 2 naked dudes wrestling, and you're just like, this is heaven. No, you're just like, what the hell am I getting myself into? This is crazy. No, but
why am I so excited right now? Right?
Very nice. I like sex. I like you. Okay, so back to football. The Steelers, they're second in the NFL power rankings. Ben Roethlisberger still suspended.
How did we get from the
raping?
NFL power?
It was raping. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Ben Roethlisberger and his suspension.
Okay. Yeah, I see the connection now.
Yeah. Okay. So I need someone to Photoshop a Borat mustache on Ben Roethlisberger. He's already kind of got one. Steelers are number 2, despite not having Ben Roethlisberger due to a suspension, despite Dennis Dixon's being injured, and now they're starting. They released Byron Leftwich. They have to wait a week before they can re-sign him.
Mendenhall's ran pretty well.
Yeah, he's been all right. They are 2-0. Charlie Batch is going to be your starter this week. I can't believe that Charlie Batch is still in the league. It seems like it's been years since he was playing in Detroit. The Packers are number 3. Aaron Rodgers has been absolutely amazing this season. I mean, doing all the things you'd expect Aaron Rodgers to do. Colts are number 5, despite being 1-1. Goes down the line. Jets,
Who's
Pats.
number 4?
What's that?
Who's number 4?
The Texans.
That's something else.
There's something to watch this season.
Matt
though.
Schaub's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, Andre Johnson too, and
Yeah.
Arian Foster has had a great first couple of weeks
yeah.
to his NFL season.
Yeah.
And you still got Steve Slayton to catch passes out of the backfield in that offense, too.
Yeah.
The Texans are...
Mario Williams?
Yeah, well, Mario Williams, Okoye, the other defensive lineman, they're going to be a team to watch this season. I think they're definitely a playoff squad.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope they beat the Cowboys this week to make them 0-3. Where do you think the Lions fall on this list?
0-2, close losses. I'll go with 25th.
Yeah, there's 32 teams in the NFL. The Lions are 27th in the power
Ooh.
rankings. 25 are the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-1, which is kind of odd because the Vikings at 0-2 are ranked 23rd. The Cowboys at 0-2 are ranked 22nd. They're the highest ranked teams without a win.
Yeah.
The 49ers are one peg above the Lions. I still think the 49ers are going to make the playoffs this season. I mean, the NFC West is just bad. I mean, they're a bad group of teams. The Cardinals, the Chiefs are in that division. I mean, granted, the Chiefs are 2-0 right now, but
Alex Smith had an all right game last week.
yeah, he did. If the 49ers could get out of their own damn way, they should have won that game against the Saints on Monday Night Football last week. Alex Smith... turnovers are what kills a team that is talented, but it just isn't ready to win yet, you would say. I guess it's sort of a sports cliche, but that was evident last Monday against the defending Super Bowl champions. Alex Smith threw a couple ill-advised passes, granted.
That's always been the knock on him, too. He's been doing that whenever he's had an opportunity to play.
But he did lead that offense up and down the field pretty well against the Saints defense, and he put himself in a position to score. They had 4 turnovers in that game. 2 of them were in the red zone. That's the reason the 49ers lost. Frank Gore looked pretty darn good, too.
Yeah.
But the Lions are 0-2.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Frank Gore.
Yeah, he does look like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. He's got a weird-shaped head. You know who else did? Is Sean Alexander, the old running back for the Seahawks. Yeah.
I can see it.
I need to get home and download Photoshop and get to work on these. That'd be some funny stuff. Who do you think's below the Lions in the power rankings? I'll give you a hint. One of the teams has a win.
I don't know.
Well, think about bad teams historically in the NFL, because they're all below the Lions, basically.
The Seahawks?
The Seahawks are not. The Seahawks actually, I think, are 1-1. They won week 1. The Browns are right behind the Lions at 28. I think they're starting, what's his name this week?
Seneca Wallace?
Seneca Wallace is starting this week for the Browns.
I thought he got hurt.
I don't know who the Browns are going to start at quarterback. They traded for Jake
Brady.
Delhomme, right? And Delhomme has been hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just an ugly offense right now. And you lose Kellen Winslow in the offseason. He's in Tampa Bay now. Tampa Bay's 2-0, which I don't think anybody expected. The Raiders at 29, they have a win. They beat the St. Louis Rams last week in an ugly game that I'm glad I wasn't forced to watch.
Bruce Gradkowski is going to be the starter there this week.
Is he really?
Yep.
Who was their starter last week?
I forgot, but they said Bruce is going to
Not Jamarcus Russell. Is he on any NFL roster right now?
No. I think there were talks of him making him an offensive lineman or something.
But seriously, why not? Can he catch the ball? Make him a tight end. He's a
Yeah.
big son of a gun.
Yeah. He's too busy drinking purple drink.
That's sad, man. That's sad, the fall of Jamarcus Russell. That was a guy I remember watching in college at LSU and being like, wow. Like, that dude's a truck. He was a big, strong quarterback.
Just make some dumb decisions.
He looked like he could make all the throws, and he had decent mobility for a guy that size. I thought he had NFL written all over him. And look at a guy that got a contract with a bad franchise, and he pretty much just ate himself out of the league, and drank himself out of the league with the purple drink. Yeah, it's disappointing to see a guy like that with all the opportunities laid out in front of him just crash and burn. I mean, you have to blame Al Davis to some degree, right, in Oakland?
Well, that's the kind of players he likes to pick up. So
yeah, Darius Hayward Bay, I'm sure, is going to be leading someone's fantasy team to victory this week. The St. Louis Rams are ranked number 30. Sam Bradford hasn't looked bad this season. It's sad to say, I've actually watched snippets of both of the Rams games so far this season, and Sam Bradford looks pretty good considering he doesn't have a receiving core on that team.
Yeah.
I think he's got Mark Clayton, who's suddenly had a resurgence in his career in St. Louis, and that Augustine Laurent fellow or something like that that everyone picked up on their fantasy team.
Sweet name.
Yeah, I just dropped him this week. He's awful. The Panthers, 31 overall. Matt Moore is
Gone.
Outsies.
Yeah.
Jimmy Clausen will be getting his first NFL start this week for the Panthers. I've never been a fan of Notre Dame quarterbacks in general, but I don't think that the Panthers are going anywhere with Jimmy Clausen.
No.
The worst-ranked team in the NFL are someone the Lions get to play in a couple weeks, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Everyone just assumed the Buffalo Bills were going to be this bad. Ryan Fitzpatrick is now their starting quarterback again. Was he undrafted or was he like a 7th-round pick out of like Harvard or something like that?
Out of Harvard. He is amongst the top 10. They have like rankings for some reason, top 10 smartest athletes.
Wow, Mike.
He is like number one.
He's not number one. It seems like you had some sort of premonition. We discussed the show last night. I didn't tell you that we were going to do the top 10 smartest athletes, but you made my segue for me. I wanted to end that conversation with Ryan Fitzpatrick and say, yeah, he went to like Harvard or something. Speaking of smart athletes, here's the top 10 smartest athletes. Well, that's like the transition noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Top 10 smartest athletes. This came on ESPN late last night. I was at the bar when I saw it. Top 10 smartest athletes in all of sports. Who do you think would be on that list?
That Myron Roll, he's up there probably.
He's a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah.
He was number 2 on the list. Myron Roll, where did he go to school at?
It was Harvard, I think.
Well, no. Well, he didn't play football at Harvard. He played football at a big school and then neglected his like senior year of eligibility to go be a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah,
what do you have to do for a Rhodes Scholar?
You go on the road and scholar people.
I think it's road with an
yeah,
RH.
I know it is, but I really don't know. I think you just get a bunch of money to do whatever, be smart.
For some reason, ESPN doesn't have this thing posted anywhere. That's odd. Like that. This just came down last night.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what it was? It was Sporting News. Just because I saw it on ESPN doesn't mean it was on
Yeah.
ESPN. We're going to get the top 10 list. The number 1 on the list was a guy I'd never heard of. It's some Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, he had like a biochemical engineering degree.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that guy.
Yeah.
But apparently he's number 1 smartest athletes in all of sports. You know, Greg McElroy cracked the list, the top 20 Alabama offensive linemen. Or no, rather quarterback, right? McElroy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I apparently can't read. Craig Breslow was the name of the guy for Oakland. No Detroit athletes that I saw were on this list. Think about the athletes in the 4 major sports in Detroit. Imagine that these other smart guys aren't on there.
Aaron Franzen says Rhodes Scholars study at Oxford for a year on scholarship, so they go.
There you go.
Something like that.
That's what Rhodes Scholars do. And that was the big controversy with Myron Roll a couple of years ago, is that Myron Roll had NFL talent. I mean, everyone said, this guy's good enough to play in the big leagues.
The mayor of Flint was a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah, I heard that last night, actually. Ryan Slocum, a sports guy at ABC 12, was talking about that, about how Dane Walling was a Rhodes Scholar.
Smart guy.
Impressive. I did not know that.
Some people wouldn't say smart, but at least in that sense. Yeah.
I don't want to get into a political discussion here.
Intelligence and politics are two different things.
Think about the top intelligence just in terms of Detroit sports athletes in the 4 major sports. Who could you see being on this list?
Ben Wallace.
Realistically, who could you see being on this list?
Well, I don't know. What positions in sports do you think is intelligent? Would it be like the goalie in hockey? Maybe the...
No, I'm just talking personality-wise. Like, who do you think would be a smart dude? I bet Sean Hill's a pretty smart dude.
No, I don't. I get
Smarter than Matthew Stafford? Yes.
Well, no, here's the thing. From
Myron Roll.
Sean Hill, I get
Sean
that
Hill.
He's just like a country bumpkin type of guy. And then Matt Stafford. Now that we started talking about intelligence, I'm getting really dumb.
Right.
Matt Stafford seems like drunken frat boy.
Yeah,
type of guy.
definitely. You know who what a team, Detroit sports team, I think probably has a lot of smart dudes is the Wings. I mean, think about all the Swedish. Swedish people are smart, right? Because they don't speak English. I think that a guy like Nick Lidstrom looks like a really freaking smart guy. Brian Rafalski looks like a smart dude. I bet the Wings probably have, intelligence-wise, are more intelligent people than any Detroit sports team. Look at the Pistons, dude. Seriously, Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon and Ben Wallace.
Ben Gordon is moderately intelligent.
I'm not saying he can't read and write. I'm just saying that he's probably not a Rhodes Scholar. More about this list. Craig Breslow topped the list. We just mentioned the Oakland A's pitcher. 293 ERA over the last 5 seasons, but that's not the important thing. He has an undergraduate degree in molecular biophysics and biochemistry from Yale. He finished college with a 3.5 GPA, which I guess isn't that great.
No.
Scored a 1420 on the SAT, which is great, and a 34 on the MCAT. The average MCAT score for medical school applicants, only 28. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a pretty smart dude. But the most intelligent athlete in sports?
Do you know who could be really smart? It's like one of those. You know how Mike Tyson, like you think like he's a mad genius, like he's probably really intelligent. He just does dumb things because Mike Tyson says some pretty like he uses words that I would never use because they're just like, and the way he talks, he can be quite eloquent. I get that from Louis Delmas because he sounds just like.
You're
like,
right. He does sound
maybe,
just like Mike Tyson.
Because maybe Louis Delmas is like just super intelligent, like, I could see that.
I could see that too, but he's a Central grad or a Western grad, so
Yeah.
he's probably not smart at all. Tennessee Titans safety Myron Rolle, who does play in the NFL now, he graduated from Florida State. He received the Rhodes Scholarship that we mentioned a little earlier. Let's see. George, what? I didn't see this guy on this list yesterday. Okay, first of all, Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Ross Ollendorf, who graduated from Princeton with 3.8 GPA and operations research financial engineering. Okay, that's great. Anaheim Ducks forward George Parros. I need a picture of George Parros right now. Parros. George Parros.
Is it the mustache guy?
That's the freaking mustache guy. He's got the best mustache in all of sports. Best mustache I've ever seen in sports. George Parros. Anaheim Ducks forward.
Unsportsmanlike Conduct mustache edition, apparently.
Mustache Ride edition. Yeah. This is a 2-hour magical mustache ride is what this show is. George Parros is a grinder in the utmost sense. He's not a position player. He's not a skill player. He's a guy that just gets out there and beats the tar out of people. And to say that he's one of the smartest people in all of sports is an absolute shock to me. He holds an economics degree from Princeton, and he's 4th on the list. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who we just mentioned, has a Harvard economics degree, and he's 5th in the top 10.
Well, I guess if you look at players that are kind of eccentric usually goes with some kind of intelligence. That would be a player, because that's pretty eccentric to grow a mustache like that and stuff like that.
That's true, but you think of like typical hockey goon has a big mustache and he gets out there and just beats people up, right?
Not a mustache like that.
Not a guy that has an economics degree from Princeton.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I like George Parros a lot more now than I did before I started reading this article.
Yeah, he's something else.
If anybody wants to get on the conversation, we've got like 20 minutes left in the show. We'd love to hear from you. The number, 810-208-1854. We wanted to talk a little bit about the Lions. We covered Ndamukong Suh. We talked about the game this week against Minnesota. I made a bold prediction that despite the Lions' injuries, they're going to end up winning this game. Nate Burleson's probably not going to play. He's got a high ankle sprain. Zach Follett might miss it with a concussion. Stephen Peterman, we can only hope, misses the game with his foot injury. Matthew Stafford's not going to play this week, although he could be back next week against Green Bay, from what I understand. Cliff Averill might be playing this week. C.C. Brown, Delmas, DeAndre Levy, Ashley Palmer, they're all iffy. How close are we to that George Parros? We got to see the stash before we move on. Legendary mustache. Usually he doesn't have that soul patch. Usually it's just that sweet stash.
I've seen it a little bit fuller before, I think, or longer. Like
he kind of like curls it at the end.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's a great mustache.
That man has an economics degree from Princeton.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great mustache.
I wanted to talk rapid fire about a couple other topics as we close out the show. Ernie Sims, this is our interesting sports story of the week. Last week, former Detroit Lions linebacker Ernie Sims started for the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, he went there in the offseason. Ernie Sims broke a personal losing streak last week against the Detroit Lions. Now, the Detroit Lions is a team that went 0-16 a couple years ago. They only won 2 games last year. They're starting this season 0-2. Ernie Sims was on those bad Detroit teams. He did not play in any of the games that the Lions won in the last few years. Ernie Sims lost 29 consecutive football games leading into last week's game with the Lions. 29 straight football games over the course of 3 seasons. Every game he played in, the team lost. How disheartening is that? How do you deal with that as an athlete? Like, you have to start thinking that it's me, right?
No, you have to start thinking about your piles and piles of money that you're getting for losing.
Right, because you can't possibly think about the fact that you've led to 30 straight losses.
You just got to think you're pretty unlucky, and at least you have a lot of money to cry over. So.
How funny was it when the Lions recovered that onside kick? You have to be thinking, Ernie Sims is like, oh no, not again. Yeah. Not 30 in a row against the Lions of all teams.
Yeah, that would have been pretty funny.
Congratulations to Ernie Sims on your first victory in 30 tries. I am happy for you. Have fun in Philadelphia. That was shocking to read that the other day. 29 straight losses. That's almost 2 straight full NFL seasons. Of course, this was over the course of 3 years. What's the point in playing anymore if you just lose all that much? I guess
Money.
why do the Lions even take the field? But
Matthew Smith has a comment.
fire.
He posted on our Facebook just 39 minutes ago. He said, "Let us pay tribute to the Detroit Pistons, whom tout themselves as one of the best teams on paper. Never mind last year's record disproves the insane remarks by Stuckey." There's been talk that he said something about them, I think, winning a bunch of games. Some insane comments. But our great hope at center got dominated by fellow Rooks early on in spring ball. Rest in peace, bad boys. And he also says MLive has a link of clips under Pistons that has Stuckey sipping Kool-Aid talk. So check that out on MLive.
All right, we'll check it out after the show. But, yeah, I think the Pistons are bad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the right word to use in this
Not
situation. Were wholly unimpressive last season.
Not going to make the playoffs?
Not going to make – no, not at all. I think the team really just took a nosedive with the Chauncey Billups trade. Mm-hmm. I mean, the team was 2-0 at the time when they traded Chauncey Billups. They had actually played pretty well in the first couple games of the season. If I remember correctly, they played the Nuggets, I think, in the second game and beat them.
The thought was that they weren't going anywhere, so
might as well go down, right?
Yeah.
Trade Chauncey, bring in AI, which is an unmitigated disaster.
I don't know. I don't understand it.
The Pistons this season, projection-wise, where do you see them finishing? I mean, the Cavaliers are going to be bad this season. Keep that in mind.
They're still not
The division's kind of open. Do the Pistons have a chance at maybe winning the Central? No?
No, I don't think they're going to compete. They're not a good basketball team. And Joe Dumars, while he had a few what people think are good years where he put together a good team, he's been bad. He's been bad recently. He just hasn't been a good.
The draft picks have been really bad.
Yeah. No, he started with Darko, and then now he's holding on to Stuckey for dear life because it's the only glimmer of hope that one of his draft picks will pan out. But he's a undersized shooting guard who wants to play point guard but can't because he can't pass the ball. So,
what hopes do you have for Jonas Jerebko this season? I mean, seriously, what role does that guy fill?
He's a role player. He shouldn't be expected to start. He's not on any good basketball team. He'd be 10th on the 10th man. I mean, he's just not that. But he's expected to produce more on the Pistons because they're not a very good team. Charlie Villanueva, that was one of the worst.
$7 million a year?
I think it was $8 million.
Really?
Yeah, and he's just terrible.
And he doesn't have any hair.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the name of that condition that he's got? The hairlessness?
Hairless Charlie.
He literally doesn't have any hair. If you haven't seen Charlie Villanueva, he can't grow it on his head or his eyebrows, or he looks like a greased seal. Generally,
hairless Charlie. We shouldn't make fun of him for having disease, but
it was pretty funny when he was in college and I was watching those games like, who the hell is that guy? And now he's in a Detroit Pistons uniform. Sigh. A couple other things we wanted to talk about real quick. Let's get to some local talk real fast.
Oh, yeah.
The Flint Warriors, the new what's the name of the hockey league they play in? The NAMASHNLFP.
NAHL.
The NAHL. The replacement of the Flint Generals at Pirani Arena in Flint. They open their season tonight.
Yeah.
Their very first game ever. Pirani Arena, almost $1 million in renovations.
Yeah.
The brand new spanking Pirani Arena. Flat screen TVs, redone seats. Hopefully they've got the ice surface thing figured out so we don't have to cancel games when it floods. All new concession stand and fancy concession things. What else? There was other stuff too.
Something with the seats and whatnot.
Yeah. Maybe they replaced the glass too.
Yeah.
Oh, the big screen. They have a freaking scoreboard now.
Yeah.
Which will show replays of big plays and stuff. So if you don't go down to Pirani Arena tonight to see a bad hockey team, go down there tonight just to see the new Pirani Arena.
Well, they're not. I don't know if they're a bad hockey team in their league. I mean, it's just not.
I'm kind of hoping that they're bad.
No.
Is that sick of me?
Yeah.
I want them to be like the Generals.
No.
I want something to replace the Generals in me.
I know, but you don't want that from a junior A team because they're already going to have enough trouble because it's not going to be the best hockey in the world. The reason it was okay for the Generals to be kind of bad and goony is because it was actually, actual
pro hockey.
Yeah, it was actual pro hockey. But I want them to do really well. The one problem I have is the way that they've been marketing this, and
they have commercials though. The Generals never had commercials.
Generals did a little bit last season.
Really? I don't remember ever seeing a Generals commercial.
But you don't. They started off with this insane promotion where they brought in Ronnie. I don't.
Yeah,
watch
he's
the
showing up
Jersey
tonight,
Shore.
the guy from Jersey Shore.
And now, while that's cool, and you'll get some younger crowds, you don't charge $20.
What they're saying is that they're going to have celebrities at most of the home games. They're going to recruit one and bring him in.
Ronnie.
That's such a gimmick, but that's how, I guess, small market shit hockey is successful.
See, that's not how
Gimmicks, promotions.
See, I think if you want a younger crowd, $20 is way too much to charge.
Well,
here's what you need.
They
to
lowered the price, though.
Now they did because they realized how bad of an idea.
They tried to
it was.
charge $20 to get in the door. If you remember, if you were a Generals fan last season, you'd like $5, maybe $10. You could pretty much sit wherever you want. But essentially, the Michigan Warriors tried to charge $20. Now, the plan was just for the first game, though, because it's the
even
reopening
worse.
of Parani.
But that's even worse because you should, if you're this team,
I agree.
you should be giving tickets away for free just to put people in the seats.
That's what the Generals did.
That's what you do. You give away free tickets so you can get people in the seats, and if they like your product, then they'll keep coming back, and then you can start charging. Minor league hockey, what minor league hockey is about, and I've talked to a few people about this, older people too, that used to go to a lot of Generals games when the Generals were in their heyday. Minor league hockey is about charging like either getting them for free or like $5, charging lots of money for concessions and parking, and then just getting a bunch of fans that are loaded and banging on the glass and watching goon hockey.
Right.
That's what the people that went to the Generals game wanted. They wanted cheap tickets, they wanted to get really drunk, and they wanted to bang on the glass and be ridiculous.
And that's exciting. That's the most fun part about being at a Generals game.
You $20. I can go to a Pistons game for $10. You do not charge $20 for a minor. Now, granted, they brought it down, but that's still
It's just a PR blunder to start your.
because people probably still think, because not everybody's in the know. A lot of people probably think, "Wow, they're charging $20. This is ridiculous." And not everybody. You'll get a younger crowd with the Ronnie thing, but nobody. I mean, there's a lot of the Generals fans aren't like super. They were when we went to a Generals game. There were a lot of the older people.
Yep.
So they're not going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll pay $20 to watch Ronnie."
I understand that you're trying to get a younger following. This is a younger team. It's not a pro team. But I think the sentiment after the playoff run that the Generals had at the end of last season is that the Michigan Warriors need to attract that Generals fan base if they're going to be successful around here. There is still a gaping need in this community, which is thriving as opposed to the way it was 5 years ago. I mean, Flint, you have to say, since it's become more of a college town, has really sort of bulked up and become a more respectable city, I suppose. They really need that professional hockey. I mean, there's a huge contingent of people that love that stuff. And Parani Arena, granted, it was kind of a trashy arena. It wasn't sold out very often last season. But as soon as that team was competitive, that place was packed.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I went to a few playoff games. And
Yeah,
it was
I went to the
exciting.
last game at Parani Arena for the Generals, and that place was just wall to wall with people.
Yeah,
If the Michigan Warriors can attract half of that crowd,
yeah, and they're
And-
gonna have a much tougher time because of the fact that they're just a junior A team and they're not a pro team.
right? And they've alluded, I guess, in interviews that it's supposed to be similar to the Generals product, but it can't be the goon hockey that adult pro hockey can be. I think that this league is more about skill set players as opposed to 35-year-old guys with 3 kids and 2 wives that want to go out there and just beat the tar out of each other every night, I hope that we do see a little bit of that goonism that makes local semi-pro hockey exciting. I don't know. I'm not going to be out there tonight. I've got other things to do, but
The problem is this isn't like, I don't know if you've ever seen semi-pro, but the way Jackie Moon would get people in the seats is he have crazy promotions.
right.
That's not how it really works. That was the joke. They were making a joke out of that when they do these crazy promotions. People just want a good product. They want cheap entertainment. And if you can put a decent product out there and not charge a lot, and then you can jack up, parking, because with that $20, I know it's not 20 now, but initially it was 20. And then
It's
you probably,
10 now, if anyone cares. But
then you have 5 or 10 for parking, and then you're probably going to want food and drinks, and that's like at that point it was like a $40 night for each, and then if you have a family of 4, it's over $100. You got to keep that. You got to keep that cheaper because if you want to bring in families, which I think could be a good crowd for them,
right.
you got to keep the tickets cheap. Don't bring in celebrities then because you're not going to draw. I can't imagine. I don't know a lot about.
Is Ronnie really a celebrity? I don't watch Jersey Shore.
No. Like this isn't like I know Snooki and the decision or what is his
The
name?
decision.
Whatever his name is. What is it?
The situation.
The
That's what
situation.
the decision was that
What
LeBron
is this?
special on ESPN.
Let's do this. Whatever they do.
The contemplation.
Maybe I'm. You know what? I'm only 23, but I feel really old because I just can't get into
I
stuff
can't
like
get into
that.
that either.
I'm an old soul.
I know there's some
Damn
people in my life
kids
that
their
love
Jersey Shore.
that trash TV. I can't do it.
Yeah, we're too old for that.
I guess they're not really bringing in celebrities. They're bringing in semi-celebrities.
But what are they going to do? Are they going to have, like, Ronnie's going to drop the puck and everyone's going to be like, yeah, I came to see Ronnie drop the... No.
I don't know. The big sell they were mentioning last night on the news was that the Michigan Warriors are going to have a whole bunch of those crazy promotions that you see in semi-pro where every night they're going to have stuff in between intermissions. They're going to have stuff... every time there's a stoppage in play, something crazy is going to happen. They're going to give away T-shirts and tickets and promotions and crazy things like that.
That's cool, but don't charge...
That's something the Generals needed to do a little more of, granted.
Yeah.
They did, like, kid bowling during intermissions where they, like, threw a kid in a sled down the other end of the ice and into some big bowling pins. That's funny and cool and everything. And they did the Chuck-a-Puck thing. Everyone loves that. That's a quick money maker.
Yeah, I love the Chuck-a-Puck.
Chuck-a-Puck was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I remember I stole a couple of those pucks one time.
Yeah.
My little brother did as a means to play hockey in the driveway. But... they need more, I guess, creative stuff. I hope that the Michigan Warriors can bring that to the table. I sincerely hope for their sake, because I think there's definitely a need for
Will
semi-pro
you go
hockey
watch
in
a
Flint.
game this
Yeah,
season?
I will. I'll be out there a couple times, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I was skeptical when the Generals, went under. I didn't really want to kind of attach myself to a young, like, semi-pro hockey team because all these players are younger than us. That's kind of creepy. I mean, maybe it's just the position I'm at in my life, but I liked watching. There's an allure. You've never seen The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler, but there's an allure to watching an aged, semi-professional athlete that never quite made it to the pinnacle of his sporting career, yet has the passion to still play the game at 35, even though he's not that good and he's really just sort of embarrassing himself. But he's still, I don't know, there's something appealing about that. And that the Flint Generals embodied that spirit. Those guys going out there every night, they're working two jobs because they're not getting paid by the Flint Generals owners.
Yeah.
They're getting kicked out of their IHL subsidized living.
Story. It was a great story last year.
I love that.
Yeah. And hopefully, maybe we'll be able to get, a few of the players on our show or something like that. I really want them to be successful.
Yeah.
I think it would be really, really great for Flint and for them.
I hope they learned from the mistakes that the Flint Generals made and don't follow that same path.
Yeah.
Another reason that I'm definitely going to go out to the game, one, my mind was really changed yesterday when I saw a story on ABC 12 about what the Warriors are doing. I thought I was hesitant. I thought this was going to be sort of a lower scale production than the Generals because they're not a pro team. But it looks like they're really doing it up. And I didn't realize that the Pirani Arena had all these renovations too.
Yeah.
Like, I like Pirani because it was like a shitty hockey barn. You know what I mean? But these new renovations, they sound pretty sweet. And, like, that's going to bring me down there just to see that it's not as bad as it used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's still got that, like, small hometown hockey field, though, I'm sure. They didn't add any space to it. It's still going to be a small little rink and everything. So I'm hoping that I'm going to like Pirani more in addition to all the other stuff. So I'm definitely going to get down there and check games out. I don't think I'm going to like them as much as the Generals, but like I said, there's that need for semi-pro hockey in this area, and I think that they can fill that need if they don't embarrass themselves and make the same PR mistakes and the same, I guess a lot of it was like payment mistakes last season, like just they didn't have the money anywhere,
Yeah.
and that's why the Generals went under. But we've got like 7 minutes left in the show, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
A couple other things I wanted to touch on real fast. Braylon Edwards DWI. What an idiot.
Yeah.
Braylon Edwards was pulled over for driving while intoxicated the other night.
And he's on probation.
New York Jets wide receiver. A guy that went to Michigan. Mm-hmm. He started his career in Cleveland and had a couple good years. He had some injury problems, real attitude problems. Ended up on the New York Jets. He's sort of having a resurgence this season. Mark Sanchez throwing the ball pretty well. Braylon Edwards catching the ball pretty well. And then he gets pulled over for driving while twice over the legal limit. Two times the legal limit, I guess is what I'm meaning to say, in the city with the most cabs in the world.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Not a smart decision.
And the week before, they had something about, like, they went over the Jets. They told the Jets players that we have a huge contingency, a huge group of ex-cops that anytime you need a ride, just call them. We have this service for you, and you need to take advantage of it because we don't want players being stupid and driving drunk and getting themselves in trouble. That happened a week before, and the crazy bearded Braylon Edwards decided, I'm on probation. I'm going to drive twice the legal limit in the city with the most cabs and with a service that could get me home safely. What are you thinking?
The decision-making of some professional athletes boggles my mind sometimes. Braylon Edwards is just sort of struggled to make himself relevant in the NFL the last couple of seasons, and it looked like he was finally starting to do that, and then you do something stupid like this.
Yeah.
Initial reports were saying that he might not receive a suspension from the NFL. He is going to play this week. Rex Ryan announced that he's not going to start him. I guess, is that your punishment for driving while intoxicated?
Yeah.
It's looking like because he was on probation that Roger Goodell will punish him in some way, shape, or form under the NFL Code of Conduct policy. It remains to be seen what exactly happens with Braylon Edwards, but you'd think he's either going to be suspended for a game or two or heavily fined.
He's had substance abuse problems in the past.
And that's the real scary problem here.
Get him in a program. Mm-hmm. The NFL's at fault here too. Make sure he's going to it. Make sure things are going on. Just because he gets paid a lot of money, there's no excuse for him to, because he could have killed somebody. He could have won a Dante Stallworth here. I mean, it's bound to happen. If he keeps on making these mistakes, he's going to end up hurting somebody, and not just himself. So,
one more thing I wanted to talk about. We've got like 4 minutes left in the show on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. You've seen the ads this past week on ESPN, the Ole Miss ads featuring Admiral Akbar.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Ole Miss University has been without a mascot on the field since 2003. They are the Rebels. And what better mascot to lead the Rebels than the leader of the Rebel Alliance, Admiral Akbar? The students went to the dean and said, hey, we need a mascot on the field. And the dean said, go ahead, have fun with it. So they decided that they wanted it to be Admiral Akbar. And ESPN had been following him and made a bunch of promotions and commercials as a result of this. But this is a real campaign if you want to look up the specifics of it online.
It's been shut down.
It has been shut down. Lucasfilms, who owns the rights to Admiral Akbar, initially said to Ole Miss, yeah, you know what? We might let you use it. And so that really lit a fire under the campaign, if you will. Lucasfilms last week decided that they were going to shut it down and say, nah, we're not actually going to allow you to use Admiral Akbar. So tough luck. What do you think about a fictional character like that being the mascot for a university?
That would be so sweet. I would cheer for Ole Miss every game. I would buy Ole Miss merchandise. Think about, if I was a university and I was a really smart marketing guy, I would try to talk to Lucasfilms and be like, hey, we'll give you a small cut, but this is great. This is great. Everybody's talking about it. It's unique. It's catchy. It's got something that even nerds can get behind. Not your typical sports fan. We'll buy Ole Miss gear just because it has Admiral Akbar on it. It'll be like the cool hipster thing.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I'm sporty, but yet I'm a total loser because I like Star Wars.
Several of the opponents of this idea said that they didn't want to be the Ole Miss Akbars. Well, you're not. You're the Ole Miss Rebels.
Yeah.
The name stays the same. You're not changing the name of the school or your teams. It's just a mascot, kind of like the Georgia Bulldogs have the pug mascot, the ugly dog that's on the sideline of every game. I think that this would be absolutely great. And what's Lucasfilms doing with the rights to Admiral Akbar that they can't loan them to Ole Miss?
Well, they're probably worried that they're not going to get a cut.
Well, why don't you assume that they get a cut? They could figure out something. This is a guy that hasn't been in a movie in 30 years. It's not like this is one of the Jonas Brothers or something that's like big and hot and money making or something right now. This is a movie character from the 70s. Just why not throw him in there?
Well, there's going to be fans that dress up as Admiral Akbar.
For sure. It's not going to stop. It's going to become like a cult sort of thing.
Yeah, and I hope it does because it's pretty sweet. That's really awesome that they would do something like that.
I'm disappointed that Lucasfilm shut it down because now, there's no mascot that they can come up with that would even compare to the awesomeness that would be Admiral Akbar.
No, just imagine him roaming the sidelines.
I need an Ole Miss Admiral Akbar T-shirt. Rank it amongst the best mascots.
It would
in
be the best
sports.
mascot.
I agree.
I don't think there'd be a better one.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. One that makes me think that it could even compare to Admiral Akbar as a mascot for a university.
Yeah.
As one of the supporters of the Admiral Akbar movement said in one of the commercials, he's got lasers. What mascot do you know with freaking lasers? If you want to watch it, you can find the campaign somewhere on Google. We're out of time for this week's show. We'll be back next week to do another 2 hours of fun. This was Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I'm Paul Gerke. That's Mike McManaman. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. We'll see you again next week.